Hello there, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be discussing Cancer Ascendants. Let's prelude our discussion by saying that this is an assessment using the Vedic astrological system. This is distinct from the Western tropical system that most people in the United States and in Western society are used to. There's a difference of 23 to 24 degrees of the calculation for where the planets actually line up with the stars. So a lot of times, certain placements that you have in Western tropical astrology will be different than the ones you have in Vedic. So if you are accustomed to using Western tropical astrology and you're a Cancer ascendant, then you have to use a Vedic calculator to see where your actual ascendant is. It may very well be in Gemini ascendant because it moves. Tropical astrology is forward, and Vedic astrology is calculated a little bit behind. You can kind of say that the clock of tropical runs too fast. So people who are Leo ascendants in tropical astrology may find that they're actually Cancer ascendants in Vedic astrology. So with that said, let's go ahead and begin our assessment. So Cancer ascendants are very homey, sensitive, grounded, caring, sympathetic, empathic, nostalgic, sentimental people. They're not usually the type that likes to thrive on their own, independently, starting things on their own and moving without the assistance of others. They really like to feel a sense of connection and communion with other people and feel support as they are moving through accomplishing their goals in life. This is really one of those ascendants that works very well when a woman has it, particularly. It's not to say that it never works well when a man has it, or that it always works super perfectly when a woman has it, but generally speaking, women tend to function better with this ascendant. You could say similar things about Libra ascendants and Taurus ascendants as well, that these are ascendants that naturally kind of incline themselves to benefiting women more than men. There are positive things about both genders having it, but this, again, is kind of a general quality about it. And one of the reasons for this is because Mars is debilitated in Cancer. So the relationship that Mars has in the chart of a Cancer ascendant is very challenging. So for a man who has a Cancer ascendant, it can be very difficult to kind of bring out the full force of their masculine energy, to be independent and determined and self-motivating and self-driven without just kind of independently without anybody else's connection or assistance. So Cancer ascendants are, you could say they're it's an archetypical wife placement. It's like the homemaker, traditional woman, traditional wife kind of energy. So if you think of it in terms of that image, traditional wives had the support of their husbands to enact their will in the world and to kind of have that support in handling worldly matters. Right? They didn't have to go out there and work 9-to-5s themselves or to go out and conquer the world themselves. They could stay at home. They could relax in that particular sense. Obviously, they had to take care of the things in the home, but the outside battlefield, which is what Capricorn kind of represents, was something they didn't have to worry too much about. And so in this way, whether they're male or female, Cancer ascendants have this dynamic of wanting to really rely on other people, because that's the nature of a wife, of a traditional wife. That role is kind of rely on the husband, follow the husband. The husband's going to set the course, and he's going to take care of a lot of the hard stuff, and the wife is going to submit and follow and support. So when it comes to wanting someone who is very deeply supportive and emotional and compassionate, Cancer ascendants are a very good choice. So if there's a woman who wants a man who is going to be very emotionally caring towards her, very sympathetic, very kind of focused on her needs and taking care of her and supporting her like as his main priority, Cancer ascendants can actually be good for that. Now, if there are certain aspects to the first house, if they've got like Saturn or Mars in the first house, if they've got debilitated moon or certain moon stuff going on, it can change that dynamic somewhat, but this is generally speaking. But then one of the issues or the challenges that comes with women generally falling in love with and liking men who have Cancer ascendants is that that a lot of women on a biological level are really attracted to kind of self-deterministic, independent, strong guys that kind of just go out there and kind of impress their will in the world and do what they want, and the woman kind of follows. So you can kind of have role reversal dynamics when you have a male with a Cancer ascendant. They are going to actually look for a woman, because of Capricorn being in their seventh house, who is more of a professional type of woman, who is more responsible. They may be dating women who are older than them, which is fairly unusual biologically when you think of it in terms of like biological evolution. Usually men marry younger women and women marry older men, but you can see that a little bit different here. One of the cool things about this is that these men are generally very committed. They are one of the most likely ascendants to thrive in monogamous settings. They can commit to monogamy and really be able to embody that. Now, again, you have to look at the whole chart. They have Venus conjunct Rahu, Mars conjunct Rahu, you know, uh, certain other placements. Then they can be more spicy, more poly, and do different types of things. But again, generally, you're going to see this committed, monogamous, traditional type of relationship that they're looking for, whether they're male or female. And when it comes to the females, these women are very good, like stay-at-home moms. They naturally fall into these roles. They make the home feel like a home, oftentimes. They really can make their partner their priority in such a way that it makes their partner feel really special and cared for. I feel like Cancer ascendant women are very desirable and very well balanced if someone is looking for a traditional wife. This is definitely a placement which can indicate that this woman is capable of doing that, whether it's in the birth chart and actually in Navamsha. They're both phenomenal placements for women. Absolutely great. And so one of the things that comes with this is that if you are a Cancer ascendant person, you're going to need someone to help you to sort of tackle the challenges of the world. You're going to need someone who you can rely on as a partner, someone who's kind of like a rock or a pillar, someone who is like, you know what, we're going to be okay. We've got this. Let's go and, I'm going to take care of this for you. Kind of like someone who goes and brings home the bacon, right? The world might seem complicated. There's bills to pay. There's taxes. There's all these complicated things going on. The Cancer ascendant generally doesn't want to have to worry about those things. They want to be like, welcome home, honey. Here's some food. I knitted you this thing. I made some art. They really kind of want to provide that homey, loving feel. They're very good at emotionally tending to their partners, more so than handling things kind of in an independent, practical manner. So one of the things to be mindful of as a Cancer ascendant when you are choosing romantic partners is to watch out for people who, because you can attract these very mature, sometimes older than you, responsible people who can handle things in the world, but the emotional dryness can sometimes be a factor if you're not very aware on how you're choosing your partners. So you might be pouring all this emotion into the partner, and the partner may not understand as much the value of that, or might not understand as much how to reciprocate the tenderness and care. Because while the Cancer ascendants really love to provide this care, they also need that care. They need to be treated in a very sensitive, gentle way. So these aren't the kind of people that, like if you're a parent and you're raising a Cancer ascendant child, where you can go, tough it up, do this thing, go out there and be successful. That's going to hurt their feelings. And it's very easy to hurt a Cancer ascendant's feelings on a fairly deep level. And if their feelings start to get hurt, if they start to feel pressured too much, they start to feel like they're not good enough, they can kind of go into their crab shell, like the crab. They can kind of go into their hermit shell and just really get sad and not really progress very much at all. they really kind of move forward in life when they're feeling comforted and comfortable and feeling at home and feeling loved and feeling like people are treating them gently and that they're appreciated. These aren't the people that you say, you know, you marry them and then you tell the Cancer Ascendant, well, I need you to make money. I need you to be more successful, you know, like that. It's like, it's this very emotional what they provide and what they need. And if you provide them this emotional care and you give them this home space to where it's kind of like the expectations of them don't have anything to do with the outside world as much. It's just like, okay, make sure the house is clean. Make sure that you're taking care of me. Make sure that, you know, you got some, there's meals cooked for me when I come home. If you give them these kind of homey tasks and you say, you don't have to worry about money. You don't have to worry about, you know, feeling stressed out about tackling things in the world. They can really begin to thrive. The second house of a Cancer ascendant is Leo. And so here you find that they take a lot of pride and feel a lot of positive energy and stimulation and a lot of their self energy as deeply woven with their family upbringing and the values of their family upbringing. So they take a lot of pride in their family. Their family, in essence, almost becomes their sense of self. So if their family is good and they have a wonderful family, they're like, this is me. And so this is one of the reasons why they make such excellent parents, why they make such excellent wives and such excellent mates in general, such excellent family people, is because the family is their sense of self. When the family's doing well, they feel nourished. They feel like I'm doing well when my family's doing well. If their family's not doing well, they're like, I'm not doing well, right? And so this nature causes them to really put a lot of emotional nourishment, a lot of attention and awareness, and a lot of focus on their family. Whatever the family values are that they're raised with, they often take a lot of pride in. So you can find that these are the kinds of people that can sometimes form very strong, like, emotional attachments to their upbringing, their family beliefs, their parents. They can kind of idolize their parents to some extent, you know, like the idea of how their family structure was when they were growing up. They take a lot of pride in that. They feel like that is a high level thing. You know, if their parents grew up on the prairie and, you know, you had a stable monogamous partnership and the mom had a bunch of kids and they worked on the farm, to them, that's royalty. So it's very, very important to them and to their sense of self and development, how their early family plays out. If the early family situation doesn't play out well, then their ability to cultivate their own self-worth can be quite damaged. It can really confuse what they feel like the heights of achievement and success are. So another thing that's very interesting about Cancer ascendants is that they can actually become quite wealthy. There's a bit of a queen dynamic that comes with this energy because, you know, the second house has to do with assets. And so you can have someone who marries, in particular, because Capricorn is in the seventh house, Cancer ascendants can get into these relationships with very, very successful individuals who make a lot of money, who provide and bring home the bacon, so to speak, and therefore their assets can thrive in a very potent manner. And the more their assets kind of thrive, the more bright and queen-like and regal the Cancer ascendant becomes. Like, they're able to really feel like they're thriving as their assets increase. Their confidence will increase as their assets increase. Their natural success and magnetism in life will increase. So if the Cancer ascendant does try to do anything in life, if their partner's bringing in a lot of assets, they got a lot of money in the bank, their stuff is doing very well, there's a radiance about them that makes them very attractive, and success continually finds them. And so these placements are also because of Aquarius being in the eighth house. These placements have a magical support to whoever they marry. So say that they marry somebody and that person's a businessman or businesswoman. The businessman or the businesswoman who marries a Cancer ascendant person may notice that their business is suddenly nourished and increased, and they start making more money. They achieve more success upon marrying the Cancer ascendant person. It's like a magical blessing that nourishes that person's career and nourishes that person's financial endeavors. This is also true to some extent with Libra ascendants, who also nurture their opponents, or their partner's resources, not their opponent's resources. That'd be very different. So pardon me on that one, but their partner's resources. Well, Cancer ascendants are a blessing to the person that they pair with. With Virgo being in the third house, you'll find that the skills that Cancer ascendants naturally are able to learn are these very practical skills that may sometimes come across as tedious to other people. So you may find that Cancer ascendants have just this expert ability to be great knitters. You know, they can play Sudoku really, really well. You know, like these kind of very homey, tedious, everyday chores that other people may or may not like to do. These Cancer ascendants have the ability to be very, very good at those things. Whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's doing laundry, whether it's sewing, they can excel at learning these kinds of practical skills. They also have the ability to excel in learning herbal skills and medicine. They can be excellent nurses, herbalists, you know, any type of healing type of art they can excel at as well. They can be a bit gossipy sometimes when it comes to their neighbors and acquaintances and, you know, even their younger siblings to some extent. You know, if you kind of think the traditional wife is kind of like gossiping, oh, look at what the neighbor did over there, blah, 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 you know, that kind of dynamic you can sort of see because Virgo has that sort of critical, analytical energy, and it's in the house of neighbors, acquaintances, younger siblings, etc. So they can be kind of critical, kind of nitpicky about their neighbors and how they're behaving. Are they living up to these standards or this way of being, etc., etc.? They can kind of have that dynamic going on. At the same time, they can be very, very helpful to their neighbors, acquaintances, and younger siblings. They want to be of use to them. They want to be somebody who can upbuild and help to make them better. So if, you know, they come in, the neighbor's kid has a scraped knee, they'll help to put that kid together. You know what I mean? Like they'll help to bandage them up and do really well. They'll want to be of use to the neighbor, bring over the salt and pepper if they need it, that kind of thing. Very, very helpful in that way. Another thing to be aware of is that there's a bit of an insecurity about how Cancer ascendants feel about how useful they actually are with their practical skills. So they can sometimes wonder like, well, I can knit really well and I can cook food and do laundry really well, but is that really useful enough to be valued? Because wherever Virgo is in the chart, you have a bit of an insecurity, a bit of an anxiety around that thing. So it's really, really helpful for a Cancer ascendant when their partner and their family and their friends and acquaintances reinforce that the skills that the Cancer ascendant has are worth a lot and valued and appreciated. They're like, wow, thank you so much for doing this laundry. You fold this so well. Like, how do you fold everything so perfectly? Like, your sewing ability is so cool. Like, you know, you knit all my clothes together, and I never even thought about actually doing that at a practical level. It's amazing that people still do that these days. You know, just really thanking them for these very practical things that they do that can really make them light up and feel a lot of relief and feel good about themselves. So Libra is in their fourth house. And, you know, this makes them really have a very loving, diplomatic, friendly home environment. So when it comes to the home environment, they often have this magical way of making it feel very beautiful. They're great interior designers, naturally. They often have this gift to arrange the home in such a way that makes their partner feel very good, feel pleasure. And through their arranging of the home environment, their partner may actually feel like draw closer to them in a relationship. So say they start dating somebody, their partner, the Cancer Ascendant's partner is going off to work. And, say that the partner, they like them a lot, right, in the beginning. But then every time the partner comes home, the house is clean. There's just this vibe about the house where everything just looks good. They move the furniture around, and now everything just feels homier. There's nice interior design and decorations and stuff like that. And every time they come home, the love for their Cancer Ascendant partner grows more and more and more. And they're like, man, I love being in this home. It makes me feel like I'm drawing closer to my partner. So the way that the Cancer Ascendant handles the home actually deepens the bond of the relationship itself. And another thing, oh, sorry, there's bugs everywhere, being out in the jungle. Another thing is that whenever something's going on in the home, say there's any type of conflict or something like that, they like to play diplomat. They like to smooth things out. So, imagine there's a mom who has a Cancer Ascendant and the kids are being rowdy. She's going to come in and play diplomat and be like, okay, everybody's going to get along. We're going to share. They're not going to take sides. They're going to want to make everybody feel happy, feel comfortable, and to balance the situation so the vibe is good. They're very, very good at doing that, playing the diplomat. So when it comes to their fifth house, they have Scorpio here, and this can make their art surprisingly deep and mysterious and transformative. So when they do engage in artistic activities and in authentically expressing themselves, you can find that there's a level of profundity to it that can shock someone who knows them in other areas of life when they can just kind of be very simple and homey and kind of grounded in that way. If they write poetry, all of a sudden you'll see these deep emotions that are coming through in their poetry. Like they can write this very profound, poetry. They may hide their art as well. They may have a secret poetry book, a secret diary. They have their art, but they kind of keep it in a secret portfolio, and they only share it to people who they feel like an intimate connection with. Or it's just that, there's a level of depth to it that may surprise people. When it comes to their early education, they want to know deep and mysterious things from a young age. So, they can be the kind of kids where they just ask very kind of profound questions, and where they perceive through the surface of things in their early education. They're not super interested in just getting good grades. They're not going to be like A+ students necessarily. I mean, they can, of course, but they're really going to be kind of just like a little bit, like they may sit there and zone out as they're zone in as they're just kind of like studying. It's like, oh, they've got a biology book and they're just contemplating some deep aspect of some element of the lesson and kind of tuning out other things, right? And so this interest in the deep and the occult has a bit of a passing nature to it, though. It's not something that they indulge in, generally speaking, long term, because it's their early education. It's not coming through in some of the other areas of the chart. And so, they'll kind of have a deep interest in sort of peripheral topics, and then it will kind of pass, and they'll go back to their kind of normal everyday, and they'll kind of like a deep interest in something, and they'll pursue it for a little while, and they're like, okay, and then they kind of just go off. It doesn't usually result in them kind of like focusing in on like an occult topic and then really kind of delving into it, fleshing it out, trying to understand it on a full level. It's almost like these kind of peripheral things that they'll have these very deep thoughts about things and then kind of go back to their everyday life. Now, Cancer Ascendants, they have a very, very deeply romantic nature, as I'm sure you can imagine. Cancer Ascendant is a very emotional ascendant to have. But when it comes to their dating life, they really, really, really want a deep, intimate, passionate, loving connection. They have a very kind of fairy tale romance idea of what relationship they're meant to be like. And so it's a very sweep me off my feet kind of dynamic that they're looking for, but on a very deep and profound level. They really want somebody who can break down their boundaries and see into their soul and almost scare them with the level of intensity and kind of overwhelm them with affection and love in the dating period of things. And so this is very interesting to pair with their Capricorn in the seventh house, which is someone who's very competent, very mature, someone who's good at handling the world, someone who can be sometimes dry emotionally by contrast, because what they really want in terms of dating is somebody who is not very dry, somebody who understands the fullest and profound depths of emotion that can be experienced, and that makes them feel nourished and loved and feel very, very good. So their sixth house is Sagittarius, and this gives them a very positive, jovial attitude when it comes to handling everyday chores and things of that nature. Like, that's one of the reasons why Cancer ascendants, one of the many reasons why they make such good homemakers, is because they're kind of happy when they go about handling their day-to-day chores. Like, this makes me feel good. I feel very bubbly and positive about handling the sixth house matters of everyday routines and cleaning and cooking and, doing kind of this tedious work. They can feel good about doing laundry, like they're kind of filled with positivity as a result of doing that. And so it's very, very good for them. And the more they handle these things, the blessings naturally flow into their life. So if they keep everything clean, if they cook for their partner, if they tend to the laundry and, make sure all these things are in order, Jupiterian blessings flow into their life, and synchronicities works in their favor, and sort of the divines and gods bless them for handling these responsibilities. So we talked about Capricorn in the seventh house. So Aquarius in the eighth house is a fairly intriguing placement because, we talked about how the eighth house has to do with their partner's assets. And Aquarius is the sign of incoming gains. It naturally belongs in the 11th house. So by marrying their partner, they increase the partner's assets, very similarly to how Libra with Taurus in the eighth house increases their partner's assets. Well, another effect of this is that intimacy can be experienced by Cancer ascendants in a community setting. So a lot of times, like, if you think of what naturally belongs in the eighth house being Scorpio, intimacy is a very deep, hidden, one-on-one thing. Like, you kind of go under hidden covers or in a hidden bedroom with your loved one in this very hidden place. Like, you're not sitting there. Most people aren't like having sex in public and sharing their deepest emotions in public. It's something you do in a hidden place, right? The most deepest levels of intimacy you do in a hidden place. So for Cancer ascendants, they are able to experience intimacy in a broader communal way. So they can feel these deep, intimate, loving connections to their community, to the group that they feel they belong in. And so it's almost like they can treat a community like they would a deep, intimate partner. And again, it's one of the reasons why they make great homemakers. They can very easily become the glue that holds a group or a community together. They're absolutely phenomenal at doing this. It's becoming the cohesive glue that unites people. And another thing is that they can often have a sixth sense, a psychic intuition, a deep and profound insight, a penetrating gaze into the emotional nature and condition of the community that they're involved in. So if something's going on in the community, they have a spidey sense that allows them to immediately kind of ping what's going on and go over there and feel and try to resolve that thing. It's like they have a big spider web, and the whole community is on the spider web. And so when something's out of alignment or something's going on, it kind of pulls on their threads, and they're like, "What's going on over here? Let me go over here and work on establishing the cohesion and uniting everybody together once again." And so, it's a very potent ability to have. When anyone's in a communal setting, these are very, very valuable people to harmonize things for people. So Pisces in the ninth house is a very devoted kind of spiritual placement to have. It's very good. Obviously, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. The ninth house is the home of Sagittarius, which is also ruled by Jupiter. So this is a very good overlap. This makes them very naturally devout spiritual people. It's a very good placement to have. The ninth house is super, super important in everybody's chart because it's the house of the meaning of life. It's the house that tells you about what's important, higher knowledge, like how do you understand God and the divine, and what is your belief system. And so for the Cancer ascendants, they have a very transcendental view of the meaning of life. It's very spiritual, it's very selfless, it's very giving. And so these are people that are well set up to be able to achieve unconditional love and to actually value unconditional love as being like the meaning of life. Like these are some of the people that can say like, what is, you can ask them like, what is the meaning of life? And they will say it's love. It's loving unconditionally. It's connecting on a spiritual level. So their inherent righteousness and their inherent goodness is really supported by this placement. Their ability to understand higher truths, like if you give them sacred texts and things of that nature, they're not usually the type to kind of intellectually sit down and study those things. Like if you give them a text, they're not the type to sort of intellectually think about, oh, I'm going to figure all this out logically, or figure out how this religion and this religion interact. They're not the comparative religion type of study people who get into that at an intellectual level. They feel their way through religion. And so regardless of what religion it is, these are people that can very naturally stay in the religion they were born into, even if somebody presents them with evidence that this religion doesn't make sense or there's flaws in it or something like that. They can still be selflessly, wholeheartedly devoted to that religion on the principle of devotion itself. So they feel their way through things. If it feels right and it feels good, it feels spiritually in alignment, they're like, this is what God is. This is what religion is. This is what the meaning of life is. It feels like it's taking my spirit to a higher place. And so often, because Pisces represents the 12th house, which is meditation and altered states of consciousness, it's like the experience of the spirit world itself. And the 9th house has a lot to do with sort of like studying that. Like you see sacred texts from the 9th house, and you see like meditating in an ashram and taking psychedelics from the 12th house, right? So you can find that these individuals, they can read a sacred text, and for them, that is a meditation. For them, it's a altered state of consciousness and a meditation and a sort of transcendental experience they can have by reading a sacred text. So, they can read like, the Bhagavad Gita or something like that and say, I feel God through this. I communicate with God through this. I'm having a direct relationship with God through this text. So it's not about the words, it's not about the intellect they're understanding or trying to comprehend about it. It's literally they're connecting with God directly through these types of means. And so this brings us to Aries being in their 10th house. And so when it comes to how the public perceives them, they can actually be perceived as very formidable individuals. It's kind of like it's kind of interesting because if you think of like the traditional wife dynamic where, a lot of sort of cultural colloquial memes, the wife is kind of scary, and it's like the wife is like the boss to some extent. Like even though the wife is like also in traditional views considered to be submissive and always has to do what the husband says, at the same time they're like, oh, like you better make sure your wife has got you whipped, huh? Like, oh, you got to go home. Don't, the wife is going to get you if you do that. That kind of energy you see from Aries in the 10th house. It's like the wife is kind of fierce, perceived as fierce, perceived as formidable, perceived as like a warrior by the society. So if other people come and they know the reputation of the wife, they're like, oh, I don't want to trespass that. Like, so, like if the friends of the husband, say, a wife has Cancer ascendant and the husband is married to her, and the friends of the husband come up and they're like, hey, you want to go like hang out? We're going to stay out late and we're going to go have a night in the town, stuff like that. Some of the other friends might be like, nah, man, we can't ask him to do that because his wife, she'll beat us up. You know what I mean? Like we can't screw around with that. The wife is strong. And so that's the kind of perception that Cancer ascendants can have in society. So it's very fascinating that they're so submissive, they're so vulnerable, they're so emotional, they're so homey, they're so empathic, and in many ways need to have their hands held throughout life. And then society perceives them as like these very formidable kind of scary people. There's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like you can't cross this person. You know what I mean? So it's really cool. I kind of find that dynamic to be a little funny. It's kind of like the mom voice dynamic where moms are so gentle and they're so caring, and then the kids start kind of stepping out of line, and the mom is nice a whole bunch, and they start disobeying, and then they're like, all right, now it's mom voice time, and then mom voice comes in, and they're like, oh shoot, now we gotta listen to mom. It's like mom's not physically very strong. Why is mom voice so intimidating? Why is it so powerful and commanding and scary? Well, you got that Aries in the 10th house to kind of bring out that commanding nature, and so you can have this dynamic where the wife like steps out of the home and she's now in charge. She's like, all you boys, you're gonna do what I say, boom, 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 boom. And they're like, oh shoot, the wife's talking. Kind of do that a lot in anime, where like Goku, like in Dragon Ball Z, you have like Goku and Vegeta, but their wives are like super commanding, even though these two guys are like some of the strongest people in the universe, but their wives tell them what to do and they kind of submit to the wives. It's like that. So pretty fun. So this brings us to Taurus into the 11th house. And again, this is one of those placements that really makes Cancer Ascendants quite wealthy. Cancer Ascendant is a great placement to have if you want to make wealth. If you think of like a lot of the traditional husband-wife archetypes, a lot of it has to do with building a home, having a white picket fence, especially in the United States, kind of the archetype of it. It's a lot to do with cultivating prosperity for your family. And Cancer Ascendants have this ability to just bless that. Just truly have the ability to bless it. The incoming gains, the assets of the partner, and the more those assets accumulate coming in from the 11th and the 8th house, the more their personal pride and magnetism and self-worth increases. So all three of those placements, there are three main money houses. Second, which represents saving money. The 8th, which represents your money that you get from other people. Pardon me. And the 11th house, which represents the money that you make. And there's the 5th house, which represents gambling and incoming or speculative gains and stuff like that, like stock market and stuff like that. But all of those wealth placements are very, very well supported. Very well supported in the chart of a Cancer Ascendant. So especially if you've got the lords of those houses well placed, money tends to gravitate towards Cancer Ascendants in the same way that if you just water a garden, stuff is going to grow in it. These are people that if you introduce them into a community, if you marry them, you introduce them, you bring them into your family, it's like it's like adding fertile soil into the garden of your life. And everything will just grow and begin to prosper, especially if the Cancer Ascendant is in Pushya Nakshatra. In particular, I've noticed Pushya Nakshatra Cancer Ascendants are very, very fertile in the ability to grow prosperity and emotional wealth, like material prosperity wealth and emotional nourishment. They excel at that. And then another thing is that because the 11th house represents communities, they have the ability to kind of turn the communities that they belong to gold. Wherever Taurus has this kind of turning to gold, making this thing prosper, making it succeed, making it flourish. And so when they join an organization, when they become part of a community, they bring this fertile energy, which makes everything better. They thrive in community settings. So these are very, very valuable people to have in your family. Very valuable people to have in your family. So, and then another thing that this indicates is that the hopes, dreams, and wishes of a Cancer Ascendant does tend to gravitate towards prosperity. They want prosperity for themselves and for their family members. They really want good things for the people that they love. And it's almost like they have this magical ability to kind of grow that and help that to become a reality. They do have that ability, I shouldn't say almost. And so this brings us to Gemini in the 12th house. And so these are people that, first of all, they make very fun drunks. Cancer Ascendants, when they enter into altered states of consciousness, they can become very funny, very witty. All of a sudden, it's like their thoughts start popping off, and they're just hilarious to be around when they're intoxicated. They're super fun. They can be the life of the party. In that respect, they're not usually party goers in general. Scorpio being in the 5th house kind of inclines them to be, a bit more on the hidden side, on the intimate side when it comes to parties. They prefer more intimate settings to big parties. They're not like the wild and out kind of people. But if you're somebody who's dating them and you two get drunk together one night and you're in an intimate setting, they are super fun. And they can be very fun in bed when they're intoxicated. They're very fun in bed in general. And it can be a way for them. They're very playful. They'll like to maybe dress up and play games and, talk and say very sexy things with their mouth and communicate when they're in bed. They're very, very fun in the 12th house matters. And when it comes to meditation and spiritual pursuits, though, if you try to get them to meditate, it's not the best placement to have for that. They'll maybe like to talk about those things, but it's like you kind of put them in an ashram or in a monastery where they're supposed to be quiet, and they're just like, I want to talk. You know what I mean? Like, I want to play, I want to have fun, I want to be a kid in the house of the 12th house there. So I think it's really good for bed pleasures. It's really good for, just having fun with them on an intimate level. But if you try to get them to kind of do mindfulness meditation, slow down, kind of transcend the body, their mind can kind of race a million miles a minute, and they can be kind of giddy and be like, I'd rather go and do something else. So that can be a little bit of a challenge. But I think all in all, Cancer ascendants have a very well placed chart. I think, like I said, is more challenging as a man because of the relationship that Mars has to the moon, and just this, it's hard for like a guy to fully be in his masculinity with this placement. But still, they're very trustworthy people. I think, man or woman, they can be very trustworthy in general. Um, and Especially in the case of a woman, these make excellent wives. D1 or D9, whether it's birth chart or Navamsha. I mean, obviously, you got to look at the whole chart. You got to look at Venus, got to look at Jupiter, you got to look at all these different placements. But just talking about these as far as ascendant positions go, this is like the wife placement. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you liked it. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. And I look forward to discussing more of these topics with you. Thanks so much. Take care.